I started my first business at the age of 7. Yes, you heard me right, at the age of 7. When did you start your own business? Let me know in the comment below. And here is how the story goes. Back in my own country, one of those periods when, I was on school holiday, and my parents, they took me back to my parents' house to spend the holiday with my grandparents. So while I was in my hometown, in my village, spending, enjoying the holiday with my grandparents, every day, my grandma would wake up early in the morning at 4 a.m. She would carry this big bowl of kola nuts on her head, and she would take it to the market. And she would come back home with money tied to her wrapper, to the tip of her wrapper, and with empty bowl. So every day I would sit at one corner, I would admire her, and I would, out of curiosity, I would be thinking in my head of what she was doing. I loved it. I loved it, when she starts bringing out the money and she starts counting. I would watch her every time. And apart from that, there were kids in the neighborhood. There were kids in my hometown that they hawk things on their head. They bring things to my grandmom to buy. So most times my grandma doesn't really buy things from the market. She buys from those little kids that hawk things around, pepper, anything you can name of. She buys them from those little kids. And I would see again, those kids would bring things, maybe kerosene, pepper. She would give them money and they would give her something in return. And that was how the curiosity started in me. Like, okay, this is it. I started wondering how I could do what those kids were doing. I've seen my grandmom doing it. And little kids like myself, like these kids, they don't have 2 heads. I should be able to do what they're doing. Luckily for me, back then, when we were growing up, when visitors come to visit, when they are leaving, they would give the little kids in the house, they would give them money. So people would, often come to visit my grandmom, and when they are leaving, oh, this is this person's daughter. Most people, they knew my parents. So they're like, oh, this is this person's daughter. They would give me money. So those money, I started saving them up towards my business. While I was saving up, I started, making research on what to do, what to even sell. Then I eventually made up my mind to sell kerosene. I was able to identify what I wanted to sell. I started making research on where to even buy the kerosene, what I needed to do, how much they sell the kerosene in wholesale price or whatever price. I needed to know all of that. So I started my research. So I asked those kids that would come around, sometimes the ones selling kerosene, I would call them to one corner. After selling to my grandma, I would start asking them questions, where they buy the kerosene from, how they got. Then they will share the kerosene in Coca-Cola bottles. So I will ask them how they got the Coca. I asked them how they got the Coca-Cola bottles, and everything I needed, I asked those kids. And I started gathering the information that I needed, every resources, the bottles, everything, where to buy from, the price of buying on wholesale, and everything. I got everything together. So one of those days, my grandma, she already left to the market as usual. So I got to work. I woke up as well. I took my bed, ate. She already prepared my food. I ate, and I went to the place that those kids told me that they described to me to buy the kerosene on the wholesale price. I went there, I bought the kerosene, and I shared the kerosene into these old Coca-Cola bottles. I gathered them together, then I shared the kerosene in the Coca-Cola bottles. Then I arranged the bottles in a bowl. Another thing that fascinated me with those kids was the way they put those things on their head, and they'll be walking without holding it. That was another thing that fascinated me. So I arranged the shared kerosene in the bottles. I arranged them in a very small bowl. Then I put it on my head. Then I started hawking. I think I did it for like few days before something happened. Someone went to tell my parents in Lagos. They went to tell my parents in the city that, oh, we saw your kid, we saw your child, we saw your daughter in the village selling kerosene, hawking. not just selling hawking kerosene. Back then there was no phone, so when someone is traveling to to the city, everyone will give them message to their people in the city. And when someone is coming from the city to the village, someone will give them, the people in the city will give them message for their people back in the village. I think that was what happened. The person saw me. I don't know why the person did not tell my grandma, and the person went to tell my parents. Till date, I don't even know the person that did that, the informant. So unfortunately, the person went to tell my parents that they saw me hawking kerosene, and everything, blah blah blah. And I guess someone was coming back from the city to the village, and my parents told them to report to my grandma. And the person called my grandma, and they reported me to my grandma. Not a good day. It was not so good, because my grandma was so perplexed. She didn't believe it. She asked me, Bukola, is it true? Is it true you've been hawking kerosene? Like, she was surprised. How? Where? When did you start? Where did you get the money from? With tears in my eyes, I started crying. She scolded me. She was mad at me. I started crying, explaining myself, how I got the money, how I got the information, the necessary information, everything. Because she was surprised, like, how did you get the kerosene? Where did you buy the kerosene from? How did you... I started explaining everything. She scolded me and she stopped me from selling the kerosene. But not for long. I think after like 2 or 3 days, after she stopped me, and she called me and she said, okay, she would allow me to be putting the kerosene in front of the house to sell instead of hawking. So she allowed me to be putting the kerosene in front of the house to sell. And that was how I started selling in front of the house. So neighbors around would come around to buy from me. So the neighbors became my customers. And it was so amazing. And that was what I did till I left my hometown. It was an amazing time that I would never forget in my life. It was the first time I would ever engage in a business activity. And ever since then, it never stopped. When I got back to Lagos, my parents didn't allow me to do it because I was still in primary school, right? They didn't allow me. So when I got to secondary school, and my teachers, they loved me so much. I was one of my teachers' favorites. So they would always give me their things to sell for them, to sell to my mates during lunch break. So I would use the opportunity to sell my own things as well. I would make coconut candy from home. I told my parents about it, and well, at first they didn't want it, but they realized that this girl is just stubborn. And I think that is one thing that is very common among entrepreneurs. You just have to be stubborn, because if you are not stubborn, you cannot build a business. They allowed me to continue, and since it was not even affecting my education, so they let it go. So that was how I started selling my coconut candy with things my teachers would give me. So there was no way they could catch me or tell me or penalize me for selling things in the school, because they would just assume, it is this teacher that, because I had 2 or 3 teachers that would give me things to sell for them. And that was the opportunity I used to sell. And from that, when I got to the high school, I sold clothes. At the age of 18, I traveled to Cotonou to sell to. I was, wash these clothes, iron them, and sell to my mates. Until my cousins started selling, they started sending, clothes to me from the US to sell for them. And that was how I started my business. I never stopped since then. And it's not stopping anytime soon. When did you start your own business? Let me know in the comments below. When was the first time you engaged in a business activity? When was the first time you did something that has to do with you exchanging money for value? Because I think we entrepreneurs, we actually have something in common. Is it that we've engaged in one business or the other when we're younger? We're always stubborn. Yes, we're often very stubborn. Because that is part of what we need We are often stubborn with what we believe in. So let me know in the comment below when you started your first business. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. I'll be sharing with you more and more content every week. Thank you. See you next time.